and
guard duty the night she died. The original inquest was held 3 weeks later. Amazingly, it started before Cheryl's parents had even arrived, and it lasted.
The original inquest was incredibly brief, didn't hear from relatives, didn't examine any forensic or ballistics.
Post-mortem could be carried out. It will form some of the evidence presented at the inquest, along with its duty to protect her.
On the capital's trains and
society.
People don't have any leave on a train. I mean, if you've got a mind to forget them, they're obviously not that important anyway. I mean, we saw so many umbrellas there, an inflatable banana. Would I really call up the London Underground, try and reclaim my inflatable banana?
It's easy to do, though, because it's things that you leave in the phone thing, you put your phone down. Twice before I've left my phone on the train.
Well,
I think there should just be umbrellas, just they should have all the leftover umbrellas sitting outside tube stations.
So
when it does rain, and people can just use them.
Good idea.
And then you put it back in next time you're passing.
Now, Angela Merkel, what's she playing at now? 1 minute it is.
Merkel, of course, and understandably, an awful lot of refugees, Syria, of northern Africa, said, yeah, absolutely. And they took this horrendous risk of going over the Mediterranean to actually get to Europe. And then more than 1 million arrived, and then the German people, an awful lot, were a little bit unhappy about it.
Is she not totally discredited by this now? She is now saying even genuine refugees from Syria and Iraq would have to go home once the conflicts have ended. If there is peace in Syria and ISIL is defeated in Iraq, we expect you to return to your homeland.
And remember what we gave you. But this is it. You can have asylum here, but only for so long, which I think is what a lot of people may have assumed in previous cases. But this is not what these refugees were told. This is not the message that was sent out.
I assume she'd open up the borders because she wanted, effectively, she was able to acquire cheap labour. So
economic migrants.
Exactly. That's the way she would look at it. So I don't understand why the change of tone all of a sudden.
Because I think she's come under some flack at home.
Making the presumption that these refugees don't want to return to Syria. I mean, I'm sure they would want to go home if the conflict ends.
Well, I don't know what. Well, again, Syria was a fairly affluent Middle Eastern country. So it's going. I don't think it will be again. Certainly not for many years to come. And that's again assuming if and when we can actually end the conflict with ISIS and with Assad, which I don't think is going to happen anytime soon. No. But again, I think for Merkel and very much under pressure from her own people and her own government as well.
Military strategy. Any change there, Michael? You're looking at the story.
Yeah. So speaking about Syria and continuing the theme, interesting piece in the Eye today, just explaining that basically ISIS can only be crushed in Iraq effectively if it is totally defeated in Syria. And what the reports are suggesting at the moment is that effectively they are penning Daesh or IS back at the moment as it stands, but effectively the front lines are now generally static. So until the US-led coalition, I suppose, and the Kurdish fighters and the Syrian army, which are getting backed by Russia, until everyone can kind of this cohesive game plan to come together to totally annihilate them in Syria and then keep them penned in Iraq, because obviously the major city that they've got under control at the moment is in Mosul, which I think has 1.5 million people under its supervision at the moment. IS have got under their wing. So effectively, what they're saying is defeat it in Syria, keep them penned in Iraq, and then Iraq is going to be its own basket case in its entirety, because even putting the 150,000 US troops, which they did to try and defeat Al Qaeda, effectively failed. So. Yeah. That's another...
And there just isn't the political willingness in America or indeed Western Europe to put the troops on the ground, is there?
Exactly, because there's no support there for it. So, but an interesting talking point, because for me, something has to happen now. It's kind of gone on for a year, 2 years. Like you said, Syria, this is going to go on for, another decade, potentially, it looks like it could last for.
But there are hopes from these talks. But the greeting is actually, they're bombing their oil supplies and they're crippling them. Yeah, the fact that their fighters' pay has gone down by 50% may be a start and an indication that perhaps the battle is starting.
They are starting to revert to guerrilla tactics, just to let you know. That was the interesting thing that came out.
Julia, there has been a change to the electoral register.
Yeah.
So basically what the government has done is that they have asked households, individuals to sign up as opposed to what way was it?
Well, it used to be the case that head of the household, whoever designated themselves that, would sign up the entire house, and there was a view to that there were some dodgy dealings going on in some constituencies, not actually that widespread. I mean, a remarkably sort of honest system there, and basically there were an awful lot of people signing up from one house in one particular constituency. Unfeasible that 40 people did actually live in that home. These were minor problems. However, I think it makes sense that people should have to individually actually sign up to vote. This, however, has meant that 800,000 people have disappeared from voter lists. A lot of those are students, so they're not registered at home anymore. These are figures
compiled by the Labour Party.
Yes, we're of course concerned particularly because students are more likely to vote Labour than vote Conservative, and so they're very concerned about this. And there's a call now for universities who aren't allowed to sort of enrol everybody in their student halls of accommodation just en masse, but to actually, when they get them to arrive, fill out a piece of paper, signing themselves up to the electoral register at university. I have to say, I'm of the view that if you want to vote, you should engage and to register. There's been a lot of publicity
it could be made
this.
easier. So when you register at university, the proposal, I think, from the Labour Party is
have the electoral register form
ready
as well.
to go. Yeah,
correct.
Yeah.
Sign up when you enrol in university. Sign up.
Very simple, quick admin. But again, I still have the view that I personally think I would make voting mandatory. Personally, I would make it a legal requirement. If you want to live in democracy and benefit from it, you should go and vote once every 4 or 5 years.
Once this all is said and done and it's decided, everyone's all of a sudden got an opinion very quickly to come out.
There was that report done into why pollsters got it so wrong at the general election. It was because young people were talking about Labour, saying they were going to vote Labour, but they didn't actually turn out and vote Labour. It's the older generation who are used to, who have lived in their homes forever, who will go out and vote.
1 in 4 under 24s actually bother to vote, and that's the reality. We do need more people to vote. But again, I just think people has a personal responsibility. If you're a student, you're educated enough to know how to go and register to vote, for goodness sake.
Driverless cars. The government very keen on this. They've invested £20 million
prepare for
into
the
this.
new landslide of innovation in this country. We are going driverless now. £20 million coming from the government as part of a £100 million intelligent mobility fund, and effectively what they're looking at doing is equipping more than 40 miles of roads and motorways with driverless car technology, effectively to prepare us for the new autonomous vehicles. This is the thing, I like being in control of my vehicle. I don't know if that's more dangerous or more safe.
I like driving. If you don't like driving, get the bus or go on the train.
But how often do you drive a day?
I drive every day.
Okay, but how many, like an hour in the car?
Probably maximum of about 40 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Probably not over that far a distance. I live in London, so we don't get anywhere fast in a car.
On a week-to-week basis, I do a lot of driving, getting to different football grounds, and you do sit there at some point and think, I need a chauffeur. I need a driver. Because you can get so much done.
That's a different thing. Yeah, that's a different thing. I mean, I cannot see. I mean, basically what we're talking about is a little noddy train. You know where you sort of go holiday towns and you see little trains going round and people sitting in the back of them on the holiday. That's what they want to do to our driving experience now. That you get in and it is as boring as get out. In
You'd be
Belfast,
doing other things, you wouldn't have to concentrate.
Belfast have now decreed that you can only drive through our city centre. They've made it so difficult to drive through Belfast city centre that we're all complaining about it. But now they've gone a step further, that you can only drive through Belfast city centre at 20 miles an hour. Why aren't they just honest and they say, we don't want you to... They're making it so unappealing to
realistically, are you able to drive in a city centre above 20 miles per hour? I mean,
probably not.
You know, really. To be fair, in terms of rates of death, if you hit somebody at 20 miles per hour instead of 30, the difference is.
But there should be peak and off-peak times in my eyes, because I was driving around London at like 10:30 last night. Roads are empty, every light was green possible, and it's and you're getting flagged every 2 seconds. Speed camera, drive at 20, and it's just like, Jesus, come on.
I'll drive you right to the brake. We'll do a handbrake turn there, and we're back with this.
The future belongs to the fast, and to help you accelerate, we've created a new company. One totally focused on what's next for your business. A true partnership where people, technology, and ideas push everyone forward. Accelerating innovation. Accelerating transformation. Accelerating next. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise.
When exercise is fun, it doesn't feel like exercise. And when healthy food tastes great, you forget it's healthy. Get Core Mints on your team. Deliciously healthy protein.
At House Network, we understand what your home means to you. So, rather than charging you thousands for selling it, Our fixed fees start from $609. Free in-home valuation. Search for House Network, a fair way to sell your home.
Tell us what you see.
They'll kill me.
Me names. Ethan Hawke.
Just don't remember.
Emma Watson. It's a part of something bigger. Regression. On DVD and Blu-ray now.
Shaka Khan, let me rock it, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Shaka Khan, let me rock it, Shaka Khan. Let me rock it, let me feel for you.
When the whole house is online, you need Vivid 200.
Mark what kind of person? Coach, physio, shoelace tire, you're a man of many talents. While your team may never win a trophy, you certainly deserve one. If anyone deserves extra help to get onto the property ladder, it's you, Mark. That's why we'll help you save extra with our new Halifax Help to Buy ISA, 4% tax-free. Mark, looks like you're going up a league.
Masamara, Kenya. Look at this. This is, well, see if you can work out. Explain to us, Michael, what we're seeing there.
Basically, what you're looking at is a poor buffalo who came a little bit too close for an elephant's liking in Masai Mara, as you stated, and effectively getting tossed in the air. All of this was captured by a lovely young lady called Kimberly Mora, who is an amateur photographer and happened to catch the whole attack in its full glory, flicking through the photos, and this was the best pick of the bunch.
This is your dream safari picture, really, then.
Yeah,
this is the elephant looking after its young.
Yeah, but I mean, what's a bull going to do to an elephant?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Buffalo are quite
He's not going
to.
Well, a buffalo's not going to eat your young, and an elephant's not going to eat the buffalo. So it's interesting, isn't it, that it obviously just came too close, and that's what tusks are for.
Yes, and luckily this elephant still has its tusks, and we've seen these horrific stories of the British man who's anti-poaching pilot losing his life in the fight to save these elephants' tusks, and this is what they're used for. They protect themselves.
What
with
beautiful
them.
creatures, though! What beautiful, powerful.
What an amazing photograph!
Yeah, I know. I mean, look at the hang time it's got in the air there. It is well off.
Needless to say, the buffalo did not survive.
No,
Jackie.
Well, John Terry is completely dominating all of today's back pages, and literally they've given pages and pages to the fact that he's not being offered a new contract at Chelsea. That's what he came out and said at the weekend. So the Daily Mail have got the opinions of Jamie Redknapp, Jamie Carragher and Martin Keown on Terry, and at the end of the piece they asked them to describe him in 3 words. Redknapp says, best we've had in the Premier League. Carragher says, best there's been. Keown says, Adams was better. But I love the fact that Jamie Redknapp, that was more than 3 words. We can't stop Jamie from talking. No, you can't stop Jamie from talking. But anyway, they just can't believe it. No one can really believe it.
From a dirty tackle to dirty weather. Here's this.
As a cool evening settles over India, the lights shine bright on a crisp New York night.
Well, Storm Gertrude brought 105-mile-an-hour winds on Friday to Shetland. Storm Henry, that's set to come in later today, probably more likely 90 miles an hour, but really battering western and central Scotland through this evening and tonight. The central belt seeing some disruptive winds, so it's almost more widespread gales, and it does look as though it will affect much of mainland Scotland. Northern England and Wales will be about 70 miles an hour, so bear that in mind if you're travelling. Now, in the south today, it's fairly mild. There's a lot of cloud around, though, and we'll have a weakening band of rain moving southwards. Temperatures in the south around 14 degrees. Once that clears, we're all in the same boat, really, with a showery mix. Some heavy, squally, thundery showers for the north and west. Snow increasingly likely as well across higher ground in Scotland. Now, the low closes in on the northwest during this evening. The wind's really picking up from, say, mid-afternoon onwards. Gusts widely of 70, maybe 80 miles an hour, and then 90 for the west coast of Scotland and the Western Isles. Massive waves as well, and it could well be that the central belt has some disruption this evening with gusts of 80 miles an hour possible. Very stormy tonight across Scotland. Shetland as the low passes close to the northeast, but it does gradually ease away tomorrow morning, and then a colder day tomorrow with sunshine and showers.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
We'll hit the break. Politics leading after that, and it's a crucial 24 hours ahead for David Cameron as Britain tries to renegotiate its EU status.
You know that moment when you realise that what used to work for you just isn't working anymore, especially our hair colour.
New Excellence Age Perfect by L'Oréal Paris with brush for easy application.
A hair colour just...
Technology works with your greys for flattering highs and lows. Roots, less noticeable.
Greys? Gone. And this makes it as easy as brushing your hair.
New Excellent Age Perfect from L'Oréal.
It's taken over 60 years to look this good. We are so worth it.
When heavy cold or flu strikes, rely on a powerful 24-hour treatment. Try Day and Night Nurse from the #1 selling pharmacy-only cold and flu brand. Day Nurse provides powerful, non-drowsy cold and flu relief, helping you get through your day. While at night, the combination of ingredients in Night Nurse target symptoms like runny nose and body aches, helping you get a restful sleep and wake up feeling better. Nothing is stronger for cold and flu day and night. Try Day and Night Nurse, only available behind the pharmacy counter.
Which free toy will you choose? Brian, or the all-new Miss Herbert, or Stunt Herbert, when you buy car, home or life insurance through Confused.com?
Forget false lashes. I just push them up. New Push-Up Drama Mascara from Maybelline New York. Cup-shaped bristles for bold, thick volume. Styling wax for gravity-defying lift. Dare to compare the push-up effect with false lashes. New Push-Up Drama Mascara. Make it dramatic. Make it happen. Maybelline New York.
Age is not the only barrier to younger-looking skin. Fatigue is too. Garnier Miracle Sleeping Cream. Our first anti-aging care that detires the look of skin overnight. Enriched with lavender essential oil in a bouncy, self-smoothing cream for intense moisture. And now for the morning, discover new Miracle Wake-Up Cream enriched with rice micropeptides. Satin smooth and younger-looking skin all day long. New Garnier Miracle Wake-Up Cream. Available at Boots.
If you're looking for beautiful bespoke fitted wardrobes, designed to not only make the most of your space, but maximise it too. With tailored storage solution, then trust Sharps. Our half-price sale is now on. Call or click for your nearest showroom or free home design visits. Sharps, created with you.
If you've been refused a loan, don't lose your cool. Visit Amigo Loans. We're fast, friendly and fuss-free. We've already approved over 185,000 people, and on average, we approve someone new every 10 minutes. You can borrow up to £5,000 with a guarantor for whatever you need. Spread your repayments over 1 to 5 years with a representative 49.9% APR variable. So don't lose your cool. Visit amigoloans.co.uk today or call 0800 71 71 77.
No deal. David Cameron faces a crucial 24 hours to try to reach agreement on an EU renegotiation. Prepare for their first electoral test in Iowa. Tackling violent offenders without shooting them. The American police taking lessons from Scotland. A Belgian cyclist denies foul play after her bike's found to contain a hidden motor. And should he stay or should he go? Chelsea deny reports that their captain John Terry is to leave the club. Hello there, very good morning to you. Sunrise here on Sky News with me, Eamonn Holmes. Starting this hour with what's being billed as a crucial day for Britain's renegotiation of its EU membership. That's after David Cameron and the European Council President Donald Tusk failed to reach agreement in last night's talks. There is flash photography in this report by our senior political correspondent John Craig.
Are you going to get a deal this evening?
Will there be a deal this evening?
Deal or no deal? When Donald Tusk arrived for his dinner date with David Cameron in Downing Street, he sounded upbeat. I hope so, he said, when asked if there would be a deal. But less than 2 hours after a handshake and a dinner of smoked salmon, roast fillet of beef and vegetables, and abruptly. No deal, he said this time. Mr Cameron's first public comment after the dinner was a tweet. A good meeting with the European Council President, who has agreed to another 24 hours of talks before publishing the draft UK renegotiation text, he said. Then Mr Tusk tweeted, confirming his departing comment. No deal yet, he said. Intensive work in the next 24 hours, crucial. So although there was no deal done here over dinner, Mr Cameron will be hoping there will be a breakthrough over the next 24 or 48 hours, and that he can still get an agreement at the EU summit in Brussels in the middle of February. If he can do that, he's still on course to hold a referendum in June. Are you hopeful of a deal, Prime Minister? But while he may get a new deal on Britain's EU membership after the extra 24 hours of talks, the clock is ticking and time is running out for Mr Cameron. John Craig, Sky News.
Let's go to Darren McCaffrey. He's outside Downing Street this morning. What's on the agenda today? What's the schedule?
More talks, Eamon. That's what's on the agenda today. David Cameron is going to be calling an awful lot of EU leaders via the telephone and Downing Street this morning. And also, we are sending Britain people, civil servants, over to Brussels to fill in the gaps, I'm told, by a Downing Street spokesperson this morning in regards to what needs to be agreed, those sticking points that still exist between David Cameron and EU officials. Now, Downing Street are insistent that significant progress was made last night at this dinner with Donald Tusk, most notably on this idea of essentially trying to clamp down on welfare benefits claimed by migrants. David Cameron has wanted to apply that so-called emergency brake so that he can stop migrants claiming benefits for up to 4 years. It seems now that the EU Commission feel that there is enough pressure on the British welfare system that that emergency brake could be applied. But there are still outstanding issues, Eamon. Most of all on this issue of economic governance. Essentially, that Britain feels it's been discriminated within the European Union because it's not a member of the Eurozone, and that needs to be addressed, David Cameron says. And also on this suggestion of backdoor migration into Britain, that some people are using other EU countries to try and get into the UK. David Cameron thinks that needs to be clamped down on. So, as I say, what happens next? Well, they're pretty crucial, the next 24 hours. I know we use that term a lot, but last night was crucial, today is crucial, and these talks will be, because David Cameron will not want to let this opportunity slip. He wants a referendum in June, and he needs a deal to be signed off later on tonight, or certainly by tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Darren, very much indeed. We stay with politics, but we go to America, and all the presidential hopefuls there have been frantically campaigning ahead of tonight's Iowa caucuses and the first real test of who Americans want in the White House. National polls putting Hillary Clinton ahead on 52% compared to Bernie Sanders on 37%. But look at the state polls. In Iowa, they suggest a much closer race, with Hillary Clinton on 47%, just ahead of Sanders on 44%. For the Republicans, nationally, first of all, Donald Trump way ahead, 36%, Ted Cruz on 20%, Marco Rubio on 10%. But again in Iowa, it's closer than that, with polls suggesting Trump is just 6% ahead of Cruz. Our US correspondent, Amanda Walker, reports.
It won't surprise you to hear that Republican Donald Trump is confident about winning the Iowa caucus.
I bring states into play that no Republican's going to think about. For instance, the concept of winning New York State is impossible for any of the people that I'm dealing with. Impossible. It's not even something. They don't even campaign there. I think we have a chance to win New York. I mean, they like me in New York. They like me in New York.
Mr. Trump, can you win Iowa? A victory in the Hawkeye state doesn't guarantee becoming the nominee, but it does give bragging rights for being the strongest contender. Not that Mr. Trump ever lacked those.
This is what the end of a Donald Trump willing to turn out for a selfie or an autograph, but what he really needs is for them to turn out and vote for him.
A lot of people here had already signed up to the Trump Club.
Has he convinced you? I think so. You're going to vote for him? I think I am. You're going to turn out for him? Yes. Are you a fan? Are you a supporter? I'm more so now than I was when I came in here.
Well, past evidence says with his business and international business that he's done well.
But after seeing him, some of the undecided are now unconvinced.
We really liked him in the beginning because he talks about everything that a lot of Americans are concerned about.
So what's put you off?
His attitude. I'm afraid that he's too gutsy.
What a bit of history we are seeing.
Second in the Republican polls is Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He spent a lot of time and effort on the ground here, pushing his Christian credentials in a bid to woo pious Iowans.
We need a man of faith in the White House.
It's very inspiring to hear him speak, and it really gives me a lot of hope about tomorrow's outcomes and November's outcomes as well.
And he's Christian, he's proven Christian. Everything that he says, you know, they're all saying a lot of the same things, and really his record is the main thing that stands out, and I really believe he's going to do what he says.
It's a tough balance, though. Appealing too far to the right could mean he fizzles further down the line in more moderate states.
The stakes in this election could not be higher.
At the other end of the political spectrum, Democrat Hillary Clinton is campaigning hard with her daughter Chelsea. She has a slight lead in the latest polls, but it looks close. It must feel like déjà vu for Clinton. When she lost Iowa in 2008, she was up against a lesser-known outsider. Like Barack Obama, her 2016 rival Bernie Sanders has captured a mood. He's promoting change, while Hillary offers a tougher sell, continuity.
I will do that.
But she can be comforted by the fact that her husband lost both Iowa and New Hampshire, but went on to win the White House.
Sign up for some. Go to caucus.
The next occupant is anyone's guess at this stage. This man has little doubt, though, it'll be him. The consensus is that's unlikely, but then no one thought he'd get this far, leading the pack on the eve of the first big 2016 test. Amanda Walker, Sky News, Iowa.
And with that, a rundown of what else is happening. Sarah Jane with that.
Thanks very much, Eamon. A scathing report has criticised the collapse of the charity Kids Company, blaming it on an extraordinary catalogue of failures at every level. Harriet Hadfield joins us now with details of that report. And Harriet, what did the committee say went wrong and whose fault was it?
Well, no one is spared in this report, Sarah Jane. Everyone from government ministers to treasurer of the charity, Camilla Batman-Gelich, who is also named in this. She founded the charity in 1996. It was closed in August, just after receiving a £3 million grant from the government after mismanagement and misspending of funding. One of the trustees who did not escape criticism, Alan Yentob, he's the BBC's former creative director, and he was described as condoning excessive spending. So just to run you through some of the points of the report, it highlights what it calls a catalogue of failures, including negligent trustees who repeatedly ignored warnings from auditors, acting too late. The government acknowledged it should have intervened before millions of pounds worth of public money was given to the charity, and it established that clear link between the length of time Alan Yentob and Camilla Batman-Gelich had been in power and the failure to correct those weaknesses. Well, the committee is chaired by the MP Bernard Jenkin, and here's what he's had to say.
The fact that the founder of the charity, a very powerful personality, was able constantly to get her own way, to insist that every kid that came to the door should be looked after, whether the charity had the money or not, meant that, as the accountants put it, the charity...
Schools and rail services could be disrupted today with the arrival of Storm Henry. There are currently 3 be aware rain warnings for the northwest of Scotland, which could lead to some localised flooding. There are 7 be prepared wind warnings for severe gale to storm force winds across Scotland. And there are also 5 be aware wind warnings for the north of England and Northern Ireland, which could see winds of up to 70 miles per hour. The World Health Organization's Emergency Committee will decide today whether the outbreak of the Zika virus should be considered a global health emergency. Health authorities in Brazil have launched an awareness campaign ahead of Rio's Carnival that starts on Friday. The virus has caused serious birth defects in South America. A final attempt will be made today to salvage an abandoned cargo ship that has been adrift off the coast of France for 5 days. A team of experts hope the vessel, which is carrying 300 tonnes of diesel, can be towed to safety before it runs aground. High winds and rough seas have made previous rescue efforts impossible. A fresh inquest begins today into the death of 18-year-old Private Cheryl James. The Army recruit died of a gunshot wound in 1995 at Deep Cut Barracks in Surrey. Cheryl's father believes an out-of-control culture at the barracks contributed to her death. Now, an extraordinary case of alleged cheating has been uncovered at the World Cyclocross Championships. A bike used by a Belgian cyclist was found to contain a hidden motor. The 19-year-old denies cheating and says it wasn't her bike. Tom Platt has the story.
19-year-old Femke van der Driesche had been touted as one of the women to watch in cycling. But now she's in the sport's full gaze, at the centre of a row over the first case of mechanical doping.
It's absolutely clear that we believe there was technological fraud, there was a concealed motor. I don't think there's any secret about that. We have the powers to sanction anyone who is found to be cheating in this way. The minimum is a 6-month suspension. There is at the moment no maximum, and there's a very substantial fine available.
The Belgian sportswoman's bike was taken for inspection after she pulled out of a race with a mechanical problem. Now she faces questions about an engine concealed in the bike's frame. She denies it's even hers.
I worked really hard for it. I also didn't have a very steady season. If I had that bike, I would have had a very steady season. I would have had a lot of help. Then logically, I would have finished in the top 5 regularly. I've never even ridden that bike.
Cycling has dealt with doping before, but that was biological. Despite rumours, this is the first case of mechanical doping that's been heard of in a major competition. But as this video shows, there's already been discussion about how it could be done.
That's 250 watts. Good for 30 minutes.
Doping of any sort to damage the sport's reputation again. Tom Platt, Sky News.
More than 120 economists, including leading former government, UN and World Bank officials, have condemned the UK government's refugee policy in an open letter. Let's go to Westminster. One of the signatories on that letter is a very interesting man called Jonathan Portes, who's there. And Jonathan is interesting because he is a former chief economist at the Cabinet Office. Jonathan, you've called government policy, actually you're saying it's morally unacceptable. So is this a moral rather than an economic or political argument you're putting forward here?
Well, we are supporting the moral arguments that are put forward by many people, of course, during this crisis. But of course, as economists, we have no more standing than you or anybody else to talk about the morality. So I think what we particularly bring to bear on this issue is the economic focus. And as we've pointed out, the UK has successfully integrated refugees in the past, and that's benefited not just refugees, but it's benefited the UK as well from both an economic and social perspective.
But Jonathan,
we've done it before, we can do it again.
Yeah, but Jonathan, that was then. This is now. Touted hospitals, you've got an education system breaking, you've got roads which can't cope, you've got a total lack of housing, social or otherwise. So how are you going to do all this?
I think you'll find, Eamonn, if you go back to the early 70s, which you and I are just about old enough to remember, that actually most of those things were actually considerably worse. We were a lot poorer then. We had an economy which was in considerably worse shape in many respects. And of course, precisely the same fears that you're raising now, precisely those fears were raised by the media in the early 1970s about the East African Asians who came then.
Oh, yeah, okay, but let's not raise them by the media. I want to hear from you as an economist, maybe rather than morally. As an economist, will you tell me the books will balance that we can afford to do this?
Yes, absolutely. The idea that we cannot afford to take in significantly more than the Prime Minister's 20,000 over 4 years is nonsense from an economic point of view. We took far more than that in a single year when the East African Asians came from Uganda in 1972, and we coped very well. And indeed, as you and most of the viewers will know, we, as well as the Ugandan Asians who came here, benefited very considerably from that influx. Similarly, of course, we benefited from the influx of Jewish refugees in the 1930s. Considerably more difficult for the country from an economic point of view than they are now.
Yeah, and you know, Jonathan, we all have a moral conscience, but in many ways, it's easy to do the moral line. It's easy to say, I'm a very good person and I think we should do things for these people. And then some people may look at the people who have to make the hard decisions and say, no, this is not, we can't do this. I mean, I know you're arguing economically we can do it, but I bring you to Mrs. Merkel, right? And she's just said at the weekend, asylum seekers from Syria, she's changed her tune basically, and Iraq will have to go home when the conflict ends. And your concern already is for refugees already in Europe. But she's saying if there is peace and ISIS is defeated in Iraq, we expect you to return to your homelands with the knowledge of what you have received from us. So maybe you're a bit out of step now.
Well, I don't really understand that point. As you know,
well,
surely...
she says take 100,000 off them, and now she's saying we've no room for them.
She's not saying... she's not... that's what you just said didn't say that at all, as you must know full well, Eamonn. Well, what she said is that if there is a peaceful resolution to the conflict in Syria, which of course we're all hoping for, but equally you and I both know that that is not just a matter of beating ISIS, it's a lot more complicated than that. And the general fighting rather than ISIS specifically. What she is saying is that refugees who no longer have a cause for refugee status are expected to go home. That's historically always been a principle that's been enforced here in other countries. She's certainly not saying that there is no more room in Germany, and we are certainly not saying and should not be saying that there is no room for people who are fleeing conflict, which very sadly shows no sign of letting up, as you know.
But also, as I know, it's probably more complicated than you're making it out to be there as well. I don't think it can be just so simplistically as like that is our duty. There'll be more to that, because what I'm pointing out to, we have seen awful pictures on this news programme that I present. We have shown awful pictures of dead children on our screens, and the government's response has changed very little. What makes you think that letters from a lot of blokes in suits will actually change anything?
Well, we're all not blokes, but I don't expect, and nor would I. There's no reason to expect the government to change policy simply in response to what some economists say. We are merely adding our voice to the debate, both as citizens of this country, but also as economists pointing out one element which has been missing in this. Perfectly affordable in the short term for us to take considerably more refugees than we are taking now. And that historical experience suggests that over the longer term, that would benefit the UK, both from an economic and social perspective. I don't expect that to change the debate overnight, but I would hope that you and your viewers would listen to it and consider the argument seriously.
Give me a figure. I mean, if you're saying 20,000 over 4 or 5 years, that's the government's figure, what do you think a more worthwhile figure would be?
Well, this is not, and I think we absolutely have to be clear, this is not a problem that the UK can solve on its own. No one is suggesting that the UK should accept all refugees who are currently arriving across the Mediterranean. That's something that has to be worked out on a European level. This is a European refugee crisis. It's not a British one, but it's not just a Greek one either. We should be doing our fair and proportionate share.
Jonathan Portes, thank you very much indeed. Good talking to you. With that, we'll take the break after this.
What the 21-foot rule has done in the United States, it has been considered a license to shoot someone.
When you have